All right, I'm here with Anthony Warren, the father that was stopped and held for 30 minutes while trying to take his daughter to the hospital for breathing problems. So first of all, Anthony, how's your daughter doing?
She's doing well. She is same old happy, bubbly self, and we're very happy that she got better.
So take us through the night from the time that you noticed something was wrong with your daughter to the time you decided to get in the car. What was going through your head when you first noticed that something was not right?
Okay, so the night of the 18th, she started getting sicker, but at about 10 o'clock that night, she was at a place where I felt comfortable laying down and trying to get some rest. Her mother stayed up with her. She works night shifts anyway, so she stayed up with her, and she woke me up about 11:30 or 12 and said she's starting to get a little worse. So I woke up at that point. I'd gotten a couple hours of sleep. I gave her medications and nebulizer treatment, and she wasn't responding to any of the treatments I could do at home. But she wasn't declining super fast. So I said, okay, we'll just wait and see. I stayed up with her until the early hours of the morning. I watched her sleep. During her time of sleep, she just her breathing got a little worse and a little worse. So about 2:30 that morning, the next morning, in the morning of the 19th, I said, okay, it's time we get her to the emergency room, because about 2:30, her breathing got super labor intensive. She wasn't moving a whole lot of air, and it just kind of happened. With Onyx, it just happens really fast. So I'm thinking, as I'm getting, I slept with my clothes on. I'm thinking, as I'm getting her into the car, I got to stop. I've got 2 minutes to get gas, and then I'm gone, right? So I was optimistic that we were going to get the help we needed. This is probably the 12th or 13th time I've done this, so nothing out of the ordinary for me, but you just kind of get focused on the task at hand and just concentrate on getting your kid the help they need.
Now, how long was she in the hospital, and what all did they do for her?
Okay, she was in the hospital, I believe exactly a week. They had her hooked up to oxygen the whole time, pretty high units. Okay, so she was hooked up to quite a bit of oxygen. She was getting medication around the clock. She was constantly being monitored by nurses and hospital staff and doctors. And she was connected to a pulse ox, which is what tells you the concentration of your oxygen and the amount of oxygen in your blood. And she was hooked up to all the equipment. She was receiving oxygen, help breathing, and it was a pretty scary time. And all the way up to the very end, she was being monitored just in case,
All right.
She was just super lethargic. But this wasn't my first rodeo, so to speak. So I knew that before we rushed to the hospital, we try to get her better, because that's what helps build up her immune system. So we can't just spoon feed her everything. She's got to build up her immune system. She was born 3 months early, so she was born with a weakened immune system and chronic lung disease. And per the doctor's orders, we wait until we know that she is under pretty good distress before we medically intervene, just so that we can give her a chance to fight and to see where it goes.
Okay.
And we've done that in the past, and most of the time she pulls through, and by the next morning with nebulizer treatments, with steroids and her albuterol inhaler, a lot of times she's fine.
So this is not something new to you. You're very familiar with her condition, and
Absolutely.
very familiar with when she is in distress and what.
Absolutely, and I know what the signs look like when it's time to go to the doctor's office, to the hospital. So
when did you realize you were being stopped, and what was going through your head as you saw the red and blues behind you?
So I was going down 36 towards Fort Hood. I stopped at the last Sefco station on the left to fuel up, so that I knew I had enough fuel to make it to the emergency room with no more stops or interruptions. Put a splash in, I headed out. I put on my hazard lights as soon as I pulled out of my driveway, which is on the other side of Gatesville. So they had been on, that's probably an 8-9 minute drive to that station. So for 8 or 9 minutes, my hazard lights had been on. I left them on even when I pulled up to the pump and put the gas in. I made sure everything was good, and I hit the road again. Hazard's still on. I make it about halfway through the military area when I notice reds and blues, maybe 3/4 of the way when I notice reds and blues behind me way off in the distance. Super far. I'd been pulled over before. Tail lights, license plates was dirty with mud and stuff. So, but I've never been lit up that far back. I mean, this guy was, I bet he was close to a mile, if not a mile behind me. He was, it was a speck in my mirror. But I was like, okay, no worries, right? This is somebody here to help.
So he had to have been going well over 100.
Oh yeah, I imagine
to catch up to you.
Yeah, I imagine so. And reviewing the footage from the cameras of the officer, I mean, he was, his engine was roaring. He was really getting on it. So
Yeah. So, what was Ratterman's initial reaction when he first approached your vehicle, and what was your response to his approach?
Well, so there's a lot of controversy around traffic stops. What I did was I pulled over as soon as he got behind me to where I could see his vehicle squared behind me. I pulled over, no hesitation. I pulled over quick. When I did that, because like I said, he was a good ways behind me. So I waited. I didn't wait for him. I waited till he got up on me. I pulled over to the side. I immediately rolled my window down and stuck my arm out and just started bidding him, like, come here, like there's an issue. This is urgent. Please, because sometimes they'll sit in their cars and wait. Mm-hmm. And he hopped out relatively quickly. When he got to the car, I immediately started telling him what was going on. I told him about my daughter. I told him that where I was headed, which was to McLane's Children's Hospital emergency room. And I, was being super compliant. And he cut me off when I was trying to explain to him and said, there is no reason for you to be going this fast. And I beg to differ. My daughter's life was in danger. Okay, so, anyways, he was just. I felt like he was unprofessional. He didn't. There was an emergency. It's been confirmed there was an emergency, and I don't feel like he was concerned for my daughter's well-being. I felt like the only thing he was concerned was the traffic stop and me going a little too fast.
And what were your thoughts when he? Because I timed it when he opened the door to look at your daughter,
Yeah.
and closed the door,
Yeah.
and it said, basically, there's nothing wrong.
A few seconds. Yeah.
So, yeah, that had to have been, what was going through your mind at that time?
Well, when he opened the door, I'm like, okay, well, at least he's going to see that this is real. And I was thinking, and to back up a little bit, sorry, when I saw those lights, I was relieved because, like I said, I thought I had help. I thought at least I would get an escort, and I wasn't worried about a speeding ticket. Okay, I can pay the ticket. Okay, I would have. That was fine. I was speeding, but and I wasn't going to argue that. That being said, though, it was for a good reason. So I was relieved when I saw these lights, and then the incident, it went completely the other way. So he opened the door, he looked at her for a second or two, closed the door. I'm thinking, okay, well, he sees, and then he goes on about how there's no reason, she looks fine, she's not in any kind of distress, the baby's fine. And at that point, I'm getting worried and I'm getting angry because my daughter's sick. I'm on a mission to get her help, and he's doing nothing but holding me up.
Right. So, what were some of Ratterman's questions when you first approached your vehicle? What was his line of questioning?
It all happened so fast. I really don't remember, to be honest with you. But nothing conducive to the situation. Nothing that was going to help me. I'm sure he went through a standard spiel about being pulled over, maybe, but I could tell he was frustrated. I could tell he was frustrated that he had to stop me. I could tell that he just wasn't trying to work with me, and I could tell that he wasn't trying to help me.
That's sad. So, do you think Ratterman ever cared or listened or showed any empathy towards your daughter's situation? And what was his response to you explaining your daughter's situation?
No, I don't. I don't think he ever showed me any empathy or my daughter any empathy. I don't think he ever cared. He was obviously never concerned And that was proven by the fact that he said there was nothing wrong, when there very obviously was something wrong, right? And I was awestruck. As a person who's never been to jail, as a person who has no criminal background, I've never been in the back of a police car, okay? And I've worked really hard my whole life to keep my nose clean, so that when it came time for me to need help from a police officer or from a deputy or law enforcement in general, that, I wouldn't have anything to worry about. I'd just be like, okay, look, I'm in need. You're here to serve and protect, and and I could get the help that I needed.
So, with that, how's your thoughts on law enforcement, especially, not just him, but
Right.
the department as a whole?
So I want to say that I don't have any law enforcement personnel in my family, but I do have. I come from a long line of correctional officers. Okay, and so it's instilled in me that you do what you're supposed to do. You handle your business, right? And I know that the correctional officers, at least, and I know that's a different thing, but still, it has its similarities. I know that they're really well trained. I've heard stories of them having to spring into action and do what they needed to do, and so and I know that law enforcement is supposed to be trained for these emergency situations. I mean, they're first responders, right? And I've never had an issue. I have never talked down on any police officers. I have never talked down even when I've gotten tickets. I've always been respectful, And first off, I feel like he's not well trained. Officer Ratterman is not well trained, obviously, that showed. And but I want to make this clear. This situation does not change my view of law enforcement. Okay, I still respect law enforcement. Okay, I'm not going to run down law enforcement because a bad deputy pulled me over, and that's what I think is. I think he's a bad deputy. That being said, though, I don't think he received the training he needed from Coryell County Sheriff's Department. I don't think he got. In fact, I know he didn't, because his actions showed that very obviously to me, and I think to thousands of people that have seen my story and our story, my daughters and I, and they've thought the same thing. But I do know other, deputies and Coryell County, and I know other police officers, and I've had run-ins with them and dealt with them, and they've always been, for the most part, very professional. So this blew my mind. I was very surprised.
So as you exited your vehicle to care for your daughter, were you worried about Ratterman's response to leaving your car? And were you concerned that he might have escalated the traffic stop to violence?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was worried. And I didn't know how he would respond. But obviously, I really didn't care at that moment, because I heard my daughter choking in the back seat, and I needed to tend to her. Mm-hmm. So whatever that meant for me, that's what that was going to be.
So why did you decide to drive your daughter instead of just calling for an ambulance? They got a local hospital there in Gatesville.
Yeah. Well, I've dealt with obviously, like I said, I've done this before. I've been tending to my daughter's needs for ever since she's been born, and I know that these situations are urgent. And like I told you in the beginning, when it's time to go, when it's time for her to get medical help, it's time. In previous incidents that I've had, not involving children, and myself and my grandparents and so on and so forth, many times I've had a delayed response from the ambulance, and that was just something I couldn't risk. And later on, and that's a little foreshadowing, because later on an ambulance was called and given wrong information and showed up to the wrong spot. So it happens. Even in this scenario, it did happen. It happened. The ambulance didn't know where to go, because Officer Ratterman, or Deputy Ratterman, didn't give them the correct location. So that could have been the same thing, when I called him.
Do you think that Ratterman called for an ambulance during your stop? And how long into the traffic stop did he mention calling for an ambulance?
So as I said, yeah, I do believe he did. I had my doubts at first, but after a little bit of investigation, he did call. However, I think this is kind of a testament to how little concern he had for the situation. He gave them the wrong information. He told them that to come to 15th Street, and we were out on Highway 36, in the middle of a military base. I mean, there's no 15th Street anywhere around there. 15th Street was about 10 miles behind me in the middle of town.
Do you think the dispatcher has any part in that? Should the dispatcher have known that there's not a 15th Street in that area?
If I'm not sure where the dispatcher was from, but if she's from the area, then absolutely she should have known. And even if she's not, since she works there, yes. To answer your question, yes, I think she should have known. But I'm not going to put any blame on her, because at the end of the day, she sent the ambulances where she was told to by the officer.
Do you know that Ratterman is a veteran?
So I do now. At the time, no, I had not a clue.
And so knowing now that he's a veteran, does it disturb you in knowing that he chose a traffic situation over your daughter's health and well-being?
Yeah, that blew my mind, because just like I have respect for law enforcement, I have the utmost respect for military personnel and veterans. You know, they keep our country free, and they fight and protect our freedoms. And I don't know what he did in the military, you know. But that being said, though, I can only imagine he's had at least some basic first aid training, right? I think pretty much all of them do.
Right.
And that being said, I feel like he should have been able to look at my daughter and listen to her labored breathing and tell that she was not okay. You know.
Right. So did you file a complaint on Ratterman? And if you did, who took your complaint? And do you think that your complaint will go anywhere?
Okay. So I did file a complaint over the phone. I was contacted by Coryell County Sheriff's Department. Maybe the next day, maybe the day after. I don't really recall. It was pretty shortly after this incident happened. I was still in the hospital with my daughter when I was contacted. I filed a complaint. I was told that the complaint was taken, filed, and everything was good. And then I believe it was the next day, I was still in the hospital. I was contacted by somebody higher up, the deputy chief or chief deputy, which is, from what he told me, is right underneath the sheriff. And so he asked me to come in and talk to them to see what we can resolve. And one of his phrases were, he started to say, "I don't have a dog in this fight." And I was thinking, you've got a bunch of dogs in this fight. I mean, if you're the chief deputy and you've got deputies under you, right? But that being said, though, he told me I needed to come in and file a complaint. And I told him, well, I've already filed the complaint over the phone verbally with the man I spoke to yesterday, and he said everything was square. And he said, no, that's not how it works. You have to come in and file a complaint in person. And I told him, I said, that's not what I was told on the phone yesterday. And I said, so, in plain English, I said, so are you telling me that if I don't physically come in, then my complaint will not be taken? And he said, yes, that's correct. And I said, okay, well, I have my reservations about going into the sheriff's department without some kind of representative or a witness or somebody that can be there with me. I'm not saying it would happen, but I could potentially be coerced into trying to get this brushed under the rug, or to saying something or signing something that I don't agree with. And let the record be clear, I'm very upset about the situation. This is a very important matter that was handled very poorly by people who were supposed to do the exact opposite of what they did. And so I'm still pursuing other avenues and kind of thinking on what I'm going to do. But that being said, though, I really don't know if my complaint was ever taken or not. To answer your question, I don't know if it was ever filed, and I don't know what happened to Ratterman. I don't know if an investigation's still going on. I don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah, they're awfully quiet about it,
yeah.
For sure. So that kind of leads into the next question. Do you think the Sheriff's Department has tried to cover up any misconduct or actions of Ratterman?
You know, I don't know if they've tried to cover anything up. At this point, I don't think they could, because of the video footage and because of just the publicity that it's gotten. But I do believe that they've tried to make light of a situation that needs to be dealt with. I think Ratterman needs to be punished. I don't know what that means. I don't know how that happens. I'm not law enforcement. I don't know what their rules and regulations are, their guidelines. But there's still a whole lot of questions. I feel like I still have a whole lot of questions that I hope to get answered.
And what would you like to see as a result of your complaint? I think you went over that a little bit just on this last question.
My biggest thing that I'd like to see better training for the law enforcement. I'd like to never see this happen in my county or really any county ever again. But that being said, that's a big ask, right? We live in a big world, but at least for Coryell County, they let him go out on his, I don't know if they call it a beat for deputies or not, but that being said, they let him go out and do his traffic stops and stuff without adequate training, obviously, right? He didn't know what to do. He didn't know where he was. He didn't handle the situation well. We had a child with chronic lung disease and a weak immune system fighting for her life in the back seat, and we just sat there. And I think that, like I said, I don't know if they tried to cover anything up, but, they wrote off the ticket, which I feel like is right. I feel like they should have. Mm-hmm. But like I said in the beginning, the ticket was never the issue. The ticket was never the issue. The money was never the issue. It was about getting my daughter help.
I agree. So, knowing what you know now, would you do it the same way again?
Absolutely.
Good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to say that it blew my mind all the support I got. I had my reservations about posting the video. You never know. You never know how people are going to respond to things. But I have gotten support in unison from the community and from strangers. I have people messaging me from other countries, on the other side of the planet, telling me that they saw my story at some place or other, because a lot of people covered it. And I have people reaching out to me just telling me that I did the right thing, and not that I ever had a doubt in my mind, but I'm just so thankful and so grateful for just my community that I live in, my friends and family, and even the strangers, the people that don't know me, just really came together and just supported the situation. And I'm just so glad that I could bring awareness to this issue, and I hope that the resolution to me would be better training, and next time it happens to someone, I hope that it's handled better.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Anthony.
Absolutely.
And good luck to you and your daughters, and if there's anything else we can do for you, just let us know.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell my story.